Hello and welcome to our second lecture of our lecture series, Climate Protection. And today we have a special guest, Martin Strele. Just to explain you the history about the idea of the lecture today is we had, no? Ich kann das nicht runterschauen. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, so to the history, we had in 2019 a lecture from Christoph Drechsel, who wrote a book, 2 Grad, 1 Tonne, 2 degrees centigrade, 1 ton CO2 per person and year. And this is a graph out of his book with the idea to display the sections of CO2 emissions per person and year for different areas of life. And I was really astonished about the magnitude of the emissions per person, and I thought it was a really good idea to have it in section from our everyday life. And this concept is also in the concept of Martin Strele. Martin Strele is the managing director of the private research institute Kairos about impact research and development. He's situated in Bregenz. Kairos develops prototypes for socio-political issues. It's a private social business and works primarily in the area of mobility, regional development, and climate protection. Martin Strele completed a degree in sustainable agriculture and rural development and a postgraduate degree at the Seminar for Rural Development at the Humboldt University in Berlin. He's the founder of Bodenfreiheit Association, and that's the page here, and is managing director of the new Welthaus Vortrag. Welthaus is an association of 7 Catholic development cooperation organizations in the country with topics like educational work, responsible handling of CO2 emissions, and child protection. And so, yeah, welcome, Martin Strele. We organize it like this. We will have some first introduction lesson about the background and how the system works, and then we have some interactive possibility, and he will show how the app works and yeah, how the concept works in practice. Welcome, Martin Strele.
Thanks very much for inviting me to Innsbruck today. I have to admit that my English is a bit clumsy. I've not been talking English a lot the past few months, years, because we are basically working from Vorarlberg. That means English is usually not our day-to-day language. Our company is called Kairos. It's a privately owned but social business. So we are a non-profit, a not-for-profit association, and that gives us the freedom to create our own research budget by using all the benefits that we arise from projects and are forced to reinvest in our projects. This is just a brief overview about projects we did for the past few years. We work a lot in sustainable mobility, in communications, and we, of course, worked for the past 13 years or so on tackling climate change. And the project that I will be talking about today is called A Better Day, the 100 Way. That's our fancy English translation of a German initiative that is called Ein guter Tag hat 100 Punkte. So the English version would be A Better Day, the 100 Way. The background of this initiative is basically that our lifestyles were, for the past few years or decades, were clinking into exponential growth lifestyles, something that we all might be aware is not very sustainable on a closed system planet as ours for sure is. We managed within 1.5 or 2 generations, so that's not a historic condition, we managed to reach almost all planetary boundaries within the past 30, 40, 50 years. Our lifestyles tend to exceed the budget that our planet or the amount of people, the amount of resources that our planet is able to sustain. And this all was created with the myth that growth, economic growth, would lead to a growth in well-being. And for the past 20 or 30 years, we observe that the still rising economic wealth, the GDP or the average income of people is still rising, but the well-being of the human population does not follow on suit. So that means we have a decoupling of well-being and wealth or economic growth. And that's basically the idea that we all followed for the past decades, and still, if we watch the news today, they still talk about growth rates, about the problem that if our growth rate is not exceeding 3%, we tend to enter an economic phase that would threaten our well-being. And that's not the case anymore, and that's I would say, our theory behind the Initiative for Better Day, the 100 Way. And this, of course, looks a bit technical. You can take the easy way and ask, for example, children to draw the way from their homes to the school. Just draw the way from home to school and back. And they sketch different pictures. This is all from the same class. These are kids that are driven by car, of course, from their parents from home to school. And the other pupils from the same class that walk from home to school, they paint much clearer, much more interesting pictures. And that's maybe a bit of a very populistic example of well-being and economic growth and development. We do not do ourselves good if we follow the growth path that we started to follow 50 years ago, and we need to make a shift as soon as possible. And this is not just the myth or the saying of the leftist liberals. It's also something that the Global Risk Report of the World Economic Forum, so the big shots that meet in Davos every year, they also publish risk reports annually, and their risk reports also show that the risk picture of our world has completely changed for the past decades and tend to be completely different. Yeah, of course, please. Sorry? I don't really know, but I'm sure somebody else will know because this picture would be bigger, I think. Yeah, okay. Just watch the colors. They will help you get the idea. The 5 major risks of the World Economic Forum Risk Report 2020 are climate action failure, extreme weather, biodiversity loss, natural disasters, and human-made environmental disasters. So these are all environmental risks, basically, that are more or less coupled with my introductory words. And of course, there is, yeah. Of course, infectious diseases are also risks that the World Economic Forum has taken account for, but the risk picture doesn't really change for the past years. These green dots that mark the area where our risk will be very likely to take effect. So the likelihood of these risks to take effect is very high. They go to the right, and the impact of these risks in case they are agreed is also very high. So these are the most dangerous risks that we all encounter, and I think this makes it very clear that it's not just a leftist movement that we need. It's a mainstream movement that tackles climate change very fast and I would say immediately. I'm just observing the chat now because there is a message here. Sorry for that. As always, you can put the questions in. Ah, okay. Yeah, thanks very much. And you will give me a hint if there are questions there. Okay, so these threats that I've been talking about, or the risks that I've been talking about, they can be very different. These are risks that we encounter, of course. Our ski slopes are under threat. The snow is not falling as it used to. These are the threats that we talk about, but of course, threats in other regions of the world are more dramatic and more existential. The problem is that the cause of climate change, of course, lies here with the richest 10% of the global population that is responsible for more than 50% of the carbon dioxide emissions, and the poorest 50% only for 10%. So these people in the global south, they are not responsible for the effects of climate change or for the climate change itself, for the causes, but of course they are the ones that take the effect now. This is a picture from some years ago. I did a study on evaluation of the German humanitarian aid in Sudan. That's a picture of Darfur. It's a region in Sudan where close to 3 million people live in refugee camps. And they live in refugee camps for the past 20 years. And yeah, you could say, okay, that's a region where people are entered into fighting each other. So that's why war started in Darfur 20 years ago. But presently, it's very clear that the Darfur crisis is a climate change crisis. Darfur used to be the breadbasket of East Africa. Darfur fed East Africa with grains, with wheat, barley, and etc. And a rapid change of rainfall pattern resulted in a very fast decline of grain production. Darfur is now close to a semi-desert, and people are not able to live on subsistence agriculture as they did before. So people die on climate change in other regions of the world, and that's not just a saying, it's reality. Of course, we all observed these issues when we talk about migration. We expect 200 to 300 million people that would flee climate change results, and we would still call them economic migrants, Wirtschaftsflüchtlinge, a very cynical name for people that flee a cause that is, or an effect that is caused by us. So we are closely responsible for the causes of their need and poverty. Okay, so now moving to what we did. That's our motivation, basically, that I was talking about until now. We wanted to develop something that, of course, works on our lifestyle. We want to work on our lifestyle and create a lifestyle that makes us happy. It's a better day, the 100 way, not a poor day or a Verzichtstag. It's a good day. So we want to work on our lifestyle, a lifestyle that makes us happy and provides for our living. And of course, we want to take into account global carrying capacities. We want to work in a way that our planet would be able to sustain for each and everybody in the world, on that planet. Of course, climate change mitigation is our main issue here. We could also work on biodiversity loss, of course, or other issues. Quality of life is something very important. As I said, lifestyle and quality of life should march hand in hand. And last but not least, global solidarity. We don't want to clean up the mess that we did around our cities or villages, but we want to work on a global scale. We want to take into account global carrying capacities and work in a way that would create fair conditions for each and everybody globally. So that's basically the very I would say very maybe a bit too much of a target for a communication initiative, but still that's our basic background from where we started. A better day, the 100 way now is the concept, and it's very simple. Basically, maybe for a lot of people that work on climate change, maybe too simple. We say that for now, 6.8 kilograms of CO2 and equivalent emissions per day equals to 100 points. And each and everybody globally, every person living on that earth has the right to consume 100 points every day, every single day. The individual budget for each and everybody is 100 points. 6.8 kilograms is not a number that we invented. It's basically the path towards climate neutrality from the Paris Declaration that we usually observe. And if I show you that picture, that would make it clearer. We say we have a path leading towards climate neutrality. Climate neutrality as defined in the Paris Declaration, and we work on these red lines and change certain platform numbers, and presently we stick with 2.5 tons per person and year as a sustainable level of emissions for now. Next year that level would be reduced to approximately 5.1 kilogram per day per person, but still for you as a consumer outside there, it would be 100 points. So the 6.8 kilograms per day and person is just a snapshot of today. Today, that would be a sustainable level that we could work with on that declining path towards the Paris Declaration, but that changes in the background. Not to be communicated openly to people, but still on the web page, it's transparent, of course. What we want to achieve is that we work with that decimal system of 100. So in order to have a very basic and simple tool that would show people the cost of different decisions, of different products, of different habits. For example, 100 gram of yogurt is 2 points. So I know, okay, I have 100 per day. 2 for a yogurt, that's okay. I could eat 50 and it would still be okay. But driving 10 kilometers with a combustion engine car would cost me 31 points. So that would say, okay, 31 is almost a third of my daily budget. So that's a bit too much maybe to work within my 100-point budget. And why we use these point system is that we want to communicate to a very broad and wide public. We don't want to communicate with the experts and the Fridays for Future community only. We want to communicate to a wide public, and that we think that needs a very basic and very simple communication tool without simplicity. It has to be simple, but not wrong. If you read the advertisements of cars and you read it's only 135 grams per kilometer CO2 emissions per kilometer, that's a nice number, but you have to know a lot to work with that number, 134 grams per kilometer. That's why we worked with that numbers, that points, and say, okay, we give different things the same price tag and help people to work with that price tags not telling them don't drive your car, don't fly, and don't eat meat, but just that's the price of meat, that's the price of flying, and that's the price of driving a car. You decide, but your budget is 100 points. If you consume more than that, more than 100 points, that exceeding number is paid by somebody in other regions of the world or by future generations, for example. So with that very simple communication tool, basically it's a visual language with that red and green issue that is very striking. So you would realize that visual language everywhere. If you see that point and you know the concept, you say, okay, 15 kilometers, 31 points, okay, it's a lot. And you can work with that number, with that points, on a wide variety of products, activities, decisions in your daily life, and it doesn't really specify the branch or issue that we have to could apply this system. And we started 12 years ago. Basically, we started by establishing a database of product carbon footprints that we just translate into points. There is a database, and you say, okay, driving a car. You click there and say, okay, 10 kilometers, one person, something like a VW Golf would be 16 points. And then you can change it to a Porsche Cayenne. It's 53 points, the same 10 kilometers alone. So it's just basically a database where you can access the prices, the price tags of different decisions, and you also get some ideas on alternatives or things alike. Or you could change to electric cars, the same 10 kilometers with a consumption of 13.5 kilowatt hours, and the electricity provider for Vorarlberg, for example, it's only 3 points. Just the driving, not the owning. So you could just get the information on prices of different products or decisions. That also applies for food, of course. For example, meat, 100 gram of chicken would be 11 points. If you buy organic chicken, that would be reduced to 6 points. So you also see what alternatives do I have. Of course, the organic chicken would be a bit more expensive in euro, but it's much cheaper in points. So you could just work with that additional price tag, complementary price tag in your daily decisions. And we don't just invent these numbers. These numbers are calculated product carbon footprints that we just translate into these points. Something else that you realize on that web page, on that database, is that the length of using commodities is a big lever to enter into a sustainable lifestyle. For example, if you buy a t-shirt, of course, that's expensive in points. If you just buy it and throw it away the same day, that will be 70 points or something like this, or 80. But if you enter the number of days that I would use such a shirt or commodity, you realize that, okay, if I buy very expensive shoes and I use them very long because I buy good shoes, that's close to nothing. It's 0.3 points. The Waldviertler shoes, for example, they last 10 years or so, and there you realize you have different strategies to work work climate friendly, I would say. And it's not a matter of buying the newest, the most recent organic T-shirt and being or being a member of that Bobo community in the big cities that of course drinks latte only with organic plant-based milk. It's a matter of really observing what your consumption pattern mean in points. And if you really do the maths here with the points, you would quickly realize that the more financial resources you have at hand, the higher the number of points is usually that you consume. And even the big community of Greens voters in the big cities that's struggle or enter into fights of different brands of organic cotton T-shirts, but then fly to Myanmar in summer for their yoga retreat. If they observe their points, they would quickly realize that the poor lady that works on the counter of the supermarket or grocery store and doesn't really even buy organic food has much lower consumption of points. The average in Austria is 450 points. That's something, the average that we usually consume. And the sustainable level, of course, is 100. Okay, with that visual language, we started our first few years. We started to develop strategies, how to communicate that, how to spread that message, how to make that visual language available to others, and make sure that we reach a sort of critical mass that would help us shift consumption patterns in our society, and not just help ourselves that we feel better. And we tried a lot. For 10 years, I would say, we tried different strategies. We gave away stickers with points to be sticked at different products in supermarkets, and people did that, and it was funny. Just to mark prices on issues, or we openly gave that visual language away to others. For example, Thomas Weber, an author in Vienna, he wrote books on A Better Day, the 100 Way. He used our visual language, the colors, the pictograms, and that all helped to broaden the base of people that would know what we talk about. A lot of companies started to work with that issue, and we developed games, card games. We have lecturing materials for schools, primary schools, secondary schools, and etc. And we basically invested every single cent that we made with other projects into that project. I think it's close to 900,000 euros of worth, that's hours and material worth, that we invested in the last 10 years into that project without getting any financial support from somebody or getting any contracts from companies or governments, because we would not have been given these contracts, because we basically say, don't consume as much as you do, don't consume the organic thing, just stop your consumption and live in another way. But to be honest, the impact was close to nothing, I would say. I mean, we had 150,000 users, 85% from Germany on our webpage. But to be honest, again, the webpage was nice, the database was nice, but you don't use such database on a daily basis. You observe it and say, oh, it's a nice idea. A lot of people said, oh, great graphics, nice visual language, but okay, we know the thing. We are Fridays for Future. It's nice that you also help us support what we do, but we didn't really enter into the society stratus where we needed to enter. And of course, that's a slide of Henrik Nordberg from his lecture on the Ost in Switzerland. Our economic targets are still going up, and our climate targets are the more years we spend talking on these, the steeper our reduction path becomes. And we would need, I say, a miracle, nothing short of a miracle to achieve what we need to achieve. It's not something that we say, okay, yeah, we are on the path and we are good to go. Just follow the path that we started, and we will reach there. We are still on a very unsustainable path, and it's 10 seconds to midnight, and I think we should urgently start finding more impact in what we do. And that was what we said to ourselves, because we spend a lot of money, a lot of effort, a lot of drops of blood directly from our hearts into that project, but still the impact was very small. And 2 years ago, we were on the crossroads of either just dumping the initiative and stopping the work and doing something else, or taking another push and creating something that would help us get more impact. And of course, I'm here because I think we found an interesting strategy, interesting strategy that works on that hen-egg problematics of, do we really change, or do we really achieve our goals by broader consumer responsibility, so having a lot of people buying plant-based milk and not driving their cars? Is that the solution? That's what a lot of politicians say. They say, oh, you Fridays for Future guys, you also use your mobile phones to just, and your mothers drive you to the protest marches. So that's one part of the discussion. And the others say, we only need policy making. We need political decisions that help us all live in that way. Fridays for Future, of course, does exactly that. They say we need the policies, we need political decisions. I support that fully. But we all know that we will not get the political decisions if the broader mainstream population does not digest the effects of these decisions. If the oil prices rise, and we can observe that presently, the shouts are very loud, support the price of petrol and diesel, and of course political decisions only in the democracies only follow the mainstream mood. So we thought that these matter of either consumer responsibility or policy making can only be tackled together. We need both at the same time on a broad level. We will get other political decisions if a lot of consumers act differently and ask for different decisions, a lot of them, not just students demonstrating on Fridays or striking on Fridays. We need them to wake us up, but we need a broad population strata with other consumer lifestyles to help us get the necessary decisions. Sorry that chart is only in German. If we want to change habits, it's not that simple. You can either change your habit if you have very simple things to change, then you need only a very small motivation and you can achieve change of habits. If you have to, if you have very difficult things to change in your habits, for example, do I really need to sell my car and then use my bicycle to ride from Hall to Innsbruck every day? If it's raining in winter, that's not really simple. It's a very difficult decision, and we know that it can make people very happy if they do it, because they can forget about their gym after their business hours. But it needs very high motivation, and I think we are not allowed to act as if the things that we tackle here are very simple. Just do it, and it's very simple. You just have to start. It's a process that you usually need a lot of time to digest, to test, and to find your pattern that works. And it's not possible to give you the 5 points of your lifestyle or the 5 golden rules for your lifestyle. It's very individual, because our lifestyles became very individual. Luckily, we have a lot of freedom to decide whatever we want, and our lifestyles are very individual, so we need very individual paths. That's one thing. And the other thing is, of course, our reality, our environment reality, it forms or it performs it marks the basis of our personal decisions. If I have public transport from Hall to Innsbruck every 10 minutes, okay, that's an environmental condition that helps me act in a different way and helps me to act more sustainable, for example. So if I have conscious or subconscious reality factors, conditions, that helps me perform other personal conditions. And if I'm able to inform by my personal decision policymakers that they would, for example, enhance the public transport between Hall and Innsbruck, that would change the environmental conditions, basically, and help me act in a more sustainable way. So that's basically a circle that strengthens itself. And if not just me acts in a certain way, and it's not just me asking policymakers to do differently, if we are a group of people asking for that, that could be more sustainable and therefore create more impact. And that's basically what we tried 2 years ago. We went to households, individual households, and created a sort of process that starts with a small balance sheet of your carbon emissions by sitting on their kitchen table and say, okay, how much do you drive and fly and whatever. And then we said, okay, use a month and try to improve what you do, your own lifestyle for a month. 28 days, that's something that has a high chance of becoming a habit if you try something for 28 days and not just once. And it was a lot of work to do that. They got support, they got cooking courses and whatever, but still for example, that's the result of Baden by Wien, a small city where I would say 60 individual people took part in that process. They started with 247 points, what is already very good, because these were the more I would say open-minded people. But still, within that month, they reduced their carbon budget from 247 to 153. So they realized, wow, that's really something that we could achieve on our own lifestyle. But that's not enough. We don't reach 100. It's basically almost impossible to reach 100. And that's still the target of each and everybody of us. So they said, okay, what we still need now, we did what we could, and now we need policy decisions. We need you, mayor, we need car sharing systems in Baden. You, mayor, we need this and that. You, state governor, we need other public transports to Vienna, etc. So they formulated policy decisions, and they supported that. 60 people went to the mayor and said, we need this and that, because we already know that with your support, we all together could achieve that level of 100. So personal lifestyle and policy making combined. And we realized that that process is very tedious. It's very tiring and needs a lot of resources, a lot of time. So we said, oh, why not using our strange computers that we all carry around in our pockets, and developing a sort of digital process that would help us scale that impact of these small town-based, village-based processes to a wider level. Because we all know we don't need 60 people in Baden, we need 6,000 people in Baden, and we don't need 6,000 people in Austria, we need 60,000 or 600,000 people in Austria, and we need 6 million in Germany that try to improve their living conditions, their lifestyle, and then by knowing what really is necessary, informing policymakers, asking policymakers for the necessary decisions. And they would realize that it's not just plastic waste that would save our planet, it's something else. It's the wider perspective, and we developed a smartphone application that has just recently been launched in December or January, basically. We haven't started the dissemination yet. We will start in May in Amstetten, Mühlviertler, Alm, Bregenz city, and some other regions. And we basically, what we did with that smartphone application is creating a system that would allow us to implement these processes that we piloted in cities and villages, and scale up the impacts. So we would basically give the environmental people of the city of Bregenz a small tool that would help them work together with 500 people in Bregenz and help them assess their carbon budget with these point issues, and then enter into a process of improving their lifestyle. And last but not least, creating very clear and concrete measures or conditions that we want to bring forward to policymakers in Bregenz City and ask for changes for all of us. And for the second part of our lecture today, I created a virtual group for this lecture, and we could just have a test run. But I would stop here and would welcome questions that we could maybe answer before entering into a small phase where I would show you how this works, and you could just have a test run. And of course, if you're not happy with it, delete your account later on. That's very simple now with that new app. But that would basically what my input would be for now, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation in the background. You know, how it was developed and how it works more or less. Are any questions about it?
Well, do you think the growing population?
Sorry. Growing population worldwide, you mean? Yeah. Okay. Very good. Good question. We observe what the IPCC tells us on the numbers of the tons of carbon dioxide that we are still able to pollute until our target. That is taken into account, of course. Yeah. And these numbers change, and that's why we say now 6.8 is okay, but next year 5.1, and 3 years from now we would maybe have to reduce the 100 point threshold to as low as 2 kilograms per day. And that basically is because of growing population on one side and a lot of other issues. Every minute that we wait is also increasing that or decreasing that threshold. Thanks.
Could you imagine having kind of a trade market with these points, so that I could sell my points to somebody else because I'm vegan, I don't fly, and I only take a bicycle, and someone who flies to Frankfurt every day could buy my points?
That's a good idea. Yeah, maybe that would be a business case for the future, to have a sort of platform to buy and sell points. The problem presently is that you will find it very difficult to really achieve or get below 100 points presently in your condition, because you would see it later. Just by living in Austria, you already consume 25 points that you cannot tackle, because universities are being built and heated, and roads are being constructed. So public consumption already takes a lot of your points away. It would be an interesting case, and we get a lot of questions. I own some forests and I plant trees, and of course carbon is stored in these trees and in these forests. That should work as a sort of minus point issue. What could I do with that? We are not in the position right now to start selling and buying points, but the idea is there, and I think it would be good, even though I would say the carbon offsetting itself, just flying around and paying 20 euros per ton CO2 is a bit of a difficult issue from my point of view. It resembles more, I would say it's a bit of cynical what I say now, but the Catholic Church used to have that system that you pay something and then you don't go to hell, but you enter heaven. And that didn't really work out well. And I think physically the carbon is emitted and it's there. And by paying 20 euro to plant some trees in Togo, where people live on subsistence agriculture and need their lands to plant their cassava, we would have to observe 30 years of planting trees in Togo to really offset the carbon that we need to offset. So I think it's a bit of a difficult thing, because we usually in offsetting, we work on very long time spans that we cannot take responsibility for. But of course, it's possible. Yeah, yeah, please. Yeah, maybe you just pull your mask for a minute. Okay. Yeah. All right.
But those would probably cost a lot of points to like instantaneously. So I got like without spending points.
Okay, you buy some, if I understand your question right, if you buy something that costs a lot of points, but that helps you consume or use less points in your daily life. Is that what you mean? Yeah, basically that's right, of course. If I buy a bicycle now, that helps me not to need a car and to ride from Hull to Innsbruck by consuming 0 points, because riding a bike would be 0, but the bike itself, of course, costs something. If you enter the database, you would see, okay, you have the mobility section where you see, okay, riding my bike is 0, but buying a bike is 3,000 points. So enter the amount of months that you are planning to use that bicycle. And then, for example, buying a car, a small petrol-driven car, just buying it and parking it at your parking lot, 18 points every day if you have that car for, I think, 8 years. If you own it 8 years and then you throw it away, it's 18 points every day just by owning the car. And of course, that's consumption patterns, and the other thing is mobility patterns. So the database differentiates between the consumption patterns and the mobility patterns. So it opens up the field for you to say, okay, sometimes I need a car, but if I own one, it's 18 points. That's too much. It's a fifth of my budget. But if I enter car sharing systems, it's basically a 10% of the consumption points. So that would be 2 points car sharing system. Okay, that opens up fields of activity for me. Yeah, and that's included in that database logic. Yeah. Yeah, secondhand is also a good question. If you buy a secondhand car, for example, he owned the car 8 years and then he sells it, then of course it's not free for me. Only if he would have thrown it away, then it would have been 0 points. But I would also own it 4 years then, because the average lifespan of a car here in Austria is 12 years before it's disposed. So 12 years would be the total lifespan, and you would always need to take on the total lifespan of products. If you still use it longer than that, then of course you could say 0. With secondhand clothes, that would be a very interesting discussion, because a lot of people, they buy something and then after a year they don't like it anymore, or they just wear it once and they store it in their cupboards and wherever. So they sell it secondhand and others buy them. Is it free or not? It's a big discussion that is very detailed. I would basically say no, even if it's free, yeah, take it as free. It's secondhand clothes is 0 points, wonderful. In fact, it is not. You have to take the total lifespan. But you would quickly realize if you check the database and enter, for example, the clothes section and say, okay, if I put 5 years for a jean and it surely lasts 5 years, no problem. You would say, okay, that's close to nothing. So that doesn't change anything anymore. But the H&M t-shirts that you buy for €4.90 and wear twice and then throw it away, these are the real awkward stuff. Even if they are organic, it's stupid. Yeah, please.
You count daily the points, but do we get on the app in the end of the year some of all points together?
Yeah.
Then
Yeah, of course. Our initiative is called A Better Day, the 100 Way. Ein guter Tag hat 100 Punkte, because we started off by forcing ourselves to calculate on a daily basis. We all know these carbon footprint calculators that work on annual issues, and they always tell me it's not possible, just forget about it. And we said, okay, but if you go to the daily basis, that should open up the motivation that, okay, there are some days that I could achieve that 100, of course. But, and the database still works with that, the daily basis. But the smartphone application has a sort of different strategy. We apply strategy of course, calculating on 3-year or year basis, but we always break it down to a daily number of points. But we don't want, of course, the bobos to calculate their days and say, I have a 60-point day because I have not opened the heating today because it was warm. I did drink a latte with plant milk, and my days are fine. And they forget about their Myanmar flight days with 7,000 points per day. So that's why our smartphone application, and I will show it in a minute, works sort of with a different approach.
There is a question in the chat, and the question is, do the points also count other greenhouse gases, or greenhouse gases, CO2 equivalent or not, and secondary impacts as well, or just CO2?
Yeah, very important, very good question. We started off with carbon footprints, and that's not carbon dioxide, it's carbon dioxide equivalent. So I think you already tackled that issue. Lachgas or methane is much more climate destructive and can be calculated as equivalents in carbon dioxide molecules. So it's just a sort of help that we designed ourselves the carbon equivalents. And what we did with our points is just using an equivalent measure, an equivalent indicator that equals to carbon dioxide equivalents. So of course, all climate gases are included, but only climate gases, not biodiversity loss, hidden water, gray energy, whatever. And we started off by saying, okay, we start with carbon dioxide, and we would include biodiversity loss and other things later. But then very fast we realized that it's not possible because the data is not there. We have vast databases with carbon footprint numbers. We have a lot of companies that are forced to calculate the gram CO2 that they that is combined with the production of that thing. So we have a database that we could use to translate into points, but all data on biodiversity, water is lacking. We don't have that, and that's why we still wait for other data. We cannot come up with that data because we need data for everything. We don't want to enter into discussion, is that laptop now very sustainable or not, or is this one better than this? And we could make 5 different scientific papers on that issue. They would get to different results, of course, and we would still not talk about our flight to Myanmar for our yoga retreat. So we say, okay, 360 degrees, that's the angle that we have to tackle in our lifestyle, but maybe not on accuracy of 1% error margin, but let it be 5, it's still okay. And that's why we use the points. That doesn't matter if the car ride is 31 or 34, 32 points. If it's 31 or 31.8 points, doesn't matter at all. But if it's 1 point or 30 points, that doesn't matter. That does matter. So that's why we said, okay, that's our approach in that initiative. And very important for that question is our initiative works well in Germany, in Austria, in Switzerland, in Italy, but for example, not in France, because France has, I would say, 80% nuclear energy in their public grid. That's carbon-wise very intelligent because it's very low carbon. But I mean, we all know about the other problems, and we don't want to create an initiative that will say, okay, nuclear energy is our future. I don't think that that's the case. So that's the limit. Presently, it works well here, but it doesn't work well globally.
You had almost 7 per day,
6.8 kilograms.
Yeah, 6.8 kilograms per day. Is this meaning that we would balance what we emit on the CO2, the environment can take it, that we are balanced, or that does mean that we have a bit space to be balanced and get a bit of minus? The reason because I'm asking because we are almost 120 ppm on CO2 in there, and we should go back to 280 on the normal standards. Yeah. Is this possible as well, or in fact we have to get that bit lower to 100, but we can turn back?
Yeah, we have to get much lower. This is one example of a path towards climate neutrality. The blue line basically is the IPCC, not the most recent one. The most recent one is on our webpage, but the one before is this one, the blue line, the path. And we say, okay, presently we would have to be on that path someplace up there, and it would be close to, I would say, 10 tons or something like this. And we say, okay, we have to do a realistic path, and that's our red line that we designed. And in our most recent path description, we compared the IPCC report and the European Green Deal numbers, and they are not really ambitious, of course, we know that. And we went into sort of the middle, but still we need to reduce that drastically. But we say, okay, presently, snapshot presently, 6.8 per day would be great if we achieve that. That would be okay. We are on the path. We are on track. If not, and we say, okay, let's wait for another 5 years, and then we really enter something. We need to reduce to zero the same week. That's impossible. That's why it's a downward path that we follow, and it's not the end result that we have to reach. There was another question here.
Do you get points just from existing? Like if you live in Austria, do you get points like even if you technically wouldn't have a place to live? Like, do you think because you have different types of energy? Because you say like, oh, France has nuclear energy.
Yeah.
Does that affect?
I think I would. Yeah, the question is if I already get points even if I don't live someplace, or I would just refer to a bit later. You would see how that works in a minute, I guess. That's okay.
I have a question to the path you showed there. It's a downward path, and we are at present at least 2.6 tons per year, and then it's reduced. But the users of the app don't realize they have always this 100 point, and it's adapted throughout time. But isn't it a little bit frustrating if you don't change your daily habit and your values become worse and worse? So you have a kind of lifestyle, and next year that's your credits is changed.
Yeah, of course. That's the issue. For example, but of course, all the others also change. Germany is a good example. Energiewende Germany helped Germany to reduce the public consumption points from, I think it was 43 when we started, and now it's 34 or something like this. So of course, Germany did something public-wise, or a lot of companies, they changed their production pattern. They reduced the carbon footprint of their products, so they get cheaper. But at the same time, we need to consume even less. So maybe if we don't really do something, we stay on the same level. But you are right, if we don't change anything, our lifestyle would be 450 points now, and next year it would be 680 points without changing anything. but it would not be that case because even Austria, though very slow, but even Austria is changing bit by bit. So it's a sort of double effort from public decision makers, from companies, and from our lifestyles that would help us enter that path, that downward path towards climate neutrality. And of course, presently, we don't really know where that number is. How many kilograms are we allowed to use per day in future? The leveled niveau is not, we can't calculate it because we don't know the area of forests in globally, and the amount of CO2 that would still be possible to be stored in oceans with other temperature niveaus. So that's an open question where we would end up with. So I would not say, okay, let's just wait and calculate 10 more years exactly the amount of kilogram per day that would be the sustainable level in the end. No, let's enter into that downward path now. And of course, we learn by going there where to stop.
So it's adapted.
Yeah, we just observe the data and read the IPCC reports, of course, and translate the reports in a sort of process, and of course we make that transparent. You enter the web page and you check what is 100 points, and then you get that PDF, and it shows the sources that we used to say what is the present number of CO2 emission equivalent emissions to get 100 points. Okay. No? Good. If that's not the case, I would just, that possible, yeah, I think you see that. Just to give you a brief overview how that smartphone application works. We have a smartphone app that I just simulated here. You can download it on the App Store and the Android Play Store. Please forgive us if you download it from the stores. You would realize that we have very low numbers of stars usually, because we use the same store place that we did our beta testing and our other apps that were not publicly available. So help us raising our stars, that would be fine, but it's our inheritance from the past. Okay, the basic thing is calculate my points. You have it in German or English. We use English for now, and you enter your name. Nothing is stored here, of course. You enter your name and you say, okay, I live in Austria. So living in Austria already brings your balance sheet to 25 points. You mostly have that info button on your page where you have the sources. Why is that calculated in a certain manner? Statistics, or use statistics here to calculate these points. That's why we only have Germany, Austria, and Switzerland for now. We try to develop more. Austria, 25 points without doing anything. Even homeless people without a home, without heating, they already consume 25 points. I think that was your basic question before. Okay, then if you live someplace, how many people live in your household? We are 5. That helps me to reduce or to spread the numbers for my building, my heating, my electricity to 5 people. So it's good to have kids even. They help you save the heating points. Pets, of course, you can check that. For example, big dogs are horrible. They are 9 points per day. I don't have a dog. Electricity consumption, and here you realize that we have 2 ways. We have a lot of people that don't know their electricity bill, of course. So we went a visual way. We say, okay, just is it this or is it this? what's your electricity consumption? It's average, whatever. But if I really know it, and if I go to my file and say, okay, let's get the last bill from my electricity company, and they say, okay, it's 2,600 kilowatt hours, and they also they are forced to write the number of CO2 emissions on the bill. So in Vorarlberg, it's 62 grams. So you can either calculate it very based on facts and figures, or you do a best guess. Both ways are possible in order to really make the threshold very low and allow a broad population to get a first idea of their points. The living space, of course, we live on 108 square meters. It's unfortunately a concrete building, less than 100 years old, and you always see the number of points that is calculated on top. The heating system here, the same thing. Either I say, okay, I don't really know, I think it's gas, and I think the building is good, but not that good. You just do a best guess, or you enter facts and figures and you say, okay, very exact, the amount, the liter oil that you use per year. You always have both ways to calculate the points. The heating of the water, electric heating, for example, furniture, home accessories, always with that visual aid that helps you estimate, and household appliances, machinery, devices that you own. A car, you can enter your car. You say, okay, I mean, I don't have a car, but let's enter a diesel car, medium size. And here you can enter the lifespan now. Second-hand idea. Is it the average lifespan 12 years in Austria? Or, oh no, I am a mechanic and I know my car would last 20 years. You can enter it here and say, okay, it's written off in 20 years and not in 12 years. My share of the car, okay, my wife also uses it, some percentage, so I only take 73% of that car, and the mileage. How many kilometers do I use that car per year? And the number of points is calculated as you go along. Car sharing issues, public transport. Yeah, do I use public transport? How many hours per week? What's the share of road and rail? Because that's really different. And if I have chosen Austria, the average of Austrian railways used. If I've chosen Germany, the average of the German railway is chosen, and Germany is worse for now, but it's getting better. Long distance travel by coach or by rail. We have Trenitalia, French railway there. Other vehicles, motorbikes, total hour of air travel for the last 3 years. That's what we introduced now, due to COVID, of course, as well, because we said, okay, take the last 3 years. How many hours did you spend in a plane? And a lot of people say, yeah, 3 years ago we did some air travel, but not every year. So we still take into account the amount of flight time that you had before. Your diet, of course, very important. And here as well, you can say, okay, I'm healthy, not much meat type of guy and adult, then it's sort of average, best guess, or I enter into facts and figures and say, okay, now I want to really do the maths. How many portions of meat do I consume every week? Okay, maybe 5. And then the share of pork, beef, and chicken, because it's very different. So you see that you can really enter into very detailed assessment, but you don't have to. You could still stay with your best guess and have a rough estimate. The amount of organic food that you buy, how do you dress? For example, simple second-hand, then you really have to buy second-hand, then you're allowed to take that simple issue. Otherwise, if you don't buy second-hand, you go to few items or standard, things like that. Or facts and figures, total numbers of trousers, whatever. You can really break it down to a very detailed guess. TV, smartphones, other devices that I own, not my family, and my personal, I have to admit that I would say I'm a bit of a techie guy there, of course. paper consumption, or for example, newspapers. I have a weekly newspaper that I share with 2 other people. So I say, okay, we have 3 readers for our weekly detailed newspaper. So you can really break it down to a very detailed level, but you don't have to. Do you smoke? Yeah, of course, not. Holidays, you can enter your holidays. You say, how many nights in a hotel do I spend per year? For example, 8 nights. You see, okay, that doesn't change a lot, but hotel category, 5-star, oh, the number of points goes up. Or let's try a cruise ship. And then you see, okay, cruise ships, not good. Forget about cruise ships. Go camping or rent a holiday home, whatever. You just get some basic information. Where are the big levers to change your lifestyle? And don't only talk about your smartphone charger, because I'm very open-minded and I always plug off the smartphone charger when I finish charging, and that's why I'm a good person. It's bullshit, because the big levers are someplace others than the smartphone charger. And then, and in the end, you get your daily score. You get your, for example, 379 points. Yeah, please. Sorry? That's only nutrition-wise. We worked on average calorie intake of young people, old people, different age groups, and gender. And that's why that's an average that a kid, female kid, has other calorie intake than a male adult, for example. And that's why.
But generally, if you look at today, historically or future-wise,
that's the first assessment is you look back for the past 1 year, 3 years, typical year. That's what would be now. What would be my history for the past year, or in flights for the past 3 years. That's just a basic assessment. That and what we want here is not, I want to make myself very good. I want to pretend I'm really good. I want to get a picture of my points. Just how do I live for now? And then you see later. Okay.
But also, because if you go back 3 years and you're asked, oh, how much clothing do you have? And you have clothing that's 10 years. So you have a lot of clothing.
No, okay. In the clothing, we also worked with average consumption patterns, average lifespan of clothes. So, and that's the difference. If you enter the database on the website, better-day.org, you can calculate it very precisely. You say, okay, 12 years and 2 trousers, something like this. But here on the 360 degrees, if we would force people to only count the number of underwear and t-shirts they have and then enter the lifespan for each and every underwear, okay, you've lost 95% of the people. That's why we work with the averages there. And of course, it's not precise. And the better you are already, the more likely is that this would really represent your lifestyle, because it's more of an average community, society-wise approach. We want to reach all and not just those that are already very good and that want to prove us that they are really good. That's not our focus group. Although we learn a lot from those people, because they say, okay, that's still wrong, or why can't I change to whatever? That helps to make that system better. But we always want to refrain from getting into detail too much, but still have the broad picture at our view for now. Okay, so for here, basically it's, okay, that's 279 points too much, but the good news is you can do something. And now you enter into the next phase. For example, here, nothing is stored, no data is stored, whatever. But now, if you want to continue, you have to register. You have to register, because the challenges that we give you, the suggestions that we give you, they are drawn from the region you live in. If you register from Innsbruck, you get the car sharing systems from Innsbruck, for example, and not from Tübingen. And that's why we need the location and some other data to tailor-made or to provide tailor-made suggestions for your lifestyle. And that's why. And there I want to, in brackets, I want to speak a bit about the business case, because we worked 12 years without a business case, and that was interesting, but not sustainable, because the tools were clumsy. We didn't have any money to invest in developments, in adaptations, and we realized that we need a business case now. Otherwise, that would not be a worthwhile and viable project for the future. And then we entered into a vast search for business cases, and we realized that there are 3 basic business cases out there. And number one is you sell your data. And we had 150,000 users from Germany predominantly before, until last year. We deleted all of them. We informed everybody and deleted all data, because we were contacted by others and say, okay, sell me your data. We want those people that are vegetarian and live in Innsbruck and whatever. You know that data is very valuable, and we don't want to sell that. We don't want to base our business case on selling data. That was out of reach for us. And a lot of people do that. The other business case is offsetting, of course. We have a lot of calculators. They say, okay, just do some clicks, and okay, you have 370 points. That's 279 too much. Pay €10.72 per month, and you are good to go. 100. It's there. We have the smartphone applications that do that. PayPal, one button, good to go. And they take a third of that €10.72 for themselves, and 2/3 are brought forward to WWF and other organizations. They are very happy and help them spread the message and spread the apps. But we think it's not a sustainable way of working with that. So that was out of reach. And our third and our business case is that we say we want tailor-made suggestions. So we contact Innsbruck office of the mayor and say, that will be a good project for you. You can create an Innsbruck group, have your Innsbruck logo there, have your car sharing issues there, your food saving projects there. We calculate you the challenges, but you pay something for your group. The people out there, they always have a free app, and they can create groups up to 7 people free of charge. That should be free for all. But if you want bigger groups, you pay something. And that's our business case. That's what we said is a responsible business case that we could openly admit, yeah, we need a bit of money to pay our team, because we have 4 people only working on that project. And up until now, we don't have a viable business case, of course, but it looks very promising, and I think it's worthwhile. But selling data and offsetting is not a strategy that we wanted to apply. So now I just wanted to show you 2 people. For example, that guy here, yeah, it's a guy. He lives in Vienna. He has 137 points, and he now gets some. Oh, sorry, that's German. Let me just change to English. I hope that works now. Yeah. The guy is asked now, do you want to reduce your carbon footprint? And then you get your suggestions. And of course, that person is already with 137 points, very low. So there are not many suggestions that are viable for him. But the other person here, the lady from Bregenz, with 439 points, oh, she gets a lot of suggestions. Yeah, she could, for example, reduce her air miles because she entered 34 hours of flights for the past 3 years. So now she could say, okay, I take up that challenge. I want to reduce my flights. I want only maybe every 3 years I want to fly 5 hours maximum. And then she immediately gets down there, you save 100 points per day. So she gets the information tailor-made on her profile. How many points are you able to reduce with that challenge that you could take up? You could activate that challenge, invite friends, say, okay, let's reduce that, start the challenge, and then that lady is already reduced to 329 points with that challenge, with that one challenge. And of course, flying, driving cars, eating a lot of meat gives you a chance of reduce a lot of points. Please.
What does it mean, the challenge? It means that the tracking for 3 years and to put in, I invite that,
Yeah.
say, okay, you're over.
No, for now we say take up a challenge and try to do something. The system sends you push notifications. For now, it sends you one push notification every week and say you have some challenges going on. Check the challenges. Are you still on it? But we are developing that thing further. We work with credits. Every night that you have a certain challenge still running, up and running, you get some credits because, and that's what I've not set up until now, you have the last option is to support political decision making, to ask politicians to change something. But we only allow people to support these policy suggestions if they have credits, if they do something on their own. And of course, you can cheat yourself in every single way. That's always possible. But we want to design processes where the Innsbruck office of the environment mayor or whatever, he sends messages to his group and say, okay, try this, try this, try this, be active. And then if you are active, you get you get the possibility to support policy suggestions. You see it in a minute. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Of course. Yeah, that's the other thing. For now, you can just start a challenge and then you are reminded on your own. Yeah, you just have the push notification that reminds you, but you have to do it because our problem is, okay, yeah, we could do it every day, and then you, what did I eat? Was it meat? Did I drive a car? We are not slaves of these tools, so it's a bit of a difficult thing. But in June, we are entering our next step where we do some streaks. You can say, okay, I take up a 2-week challenge without meat, and then you enter it every day. Did I eat meat or not? You get your push notification. Was it meat? Yes, no. And you see, okay, every day that you are on that streak, yeah, I still have a streak. So we enter into a sort of gamification thing that would help you work more with it. But for now, we are always a bit restraining from that usual smartphone addiction that all these apps out there want to achieve. These TikTok and whatever their name is, you have your flames burning if you answer your questions and things like that. I hate that. So basically, we want to use it as a good tool, as a responsible tool, but not overreact. But we are working on that gamification process. Okay, so you have your challenges and you enter the challenges that you want to achieve, and then the system reminds you, hey, you have your challenges. Are they still on or not? I can always say, okay, no, I checked my holiday plans. Okay, it's something else. So it's less. So I start the challenge again. I reduce it. It's only 76 points now and not 110 as before. So you can always adapt. And then, of course, the most important thing is, okay, I'm doing this individually, but what about the others? So you have groups. You have groups that you could say, I would just create a new group and say, okay, my family, and I invite the others, put their emails and invite my family members and say, you all do your balancing, and then we have our family average. And we see each and every family member with the individual points. For example, I think I have some family here. You see okay, there are two guys here. One has not entered his numbers. It's not anonymous. It's within my group. You see the points of others because I invited them by email. And then I can also post messages to them, and the group gets your message, and you get on your group tag, there's a new message from your group. And then you have other groups, for example, Austria. That's an open group, anonymous. So everybody entering a group Austria, nobody else sees my points, of course. You just have the total average in Austria is 223 now. It's not a lot of people, 120. And my average is 363. So you just have get the information of how am I doing as related to the average of the group that I'm joining. Joining a group doesn't mean anything. For example, if you are here now in the if you try scan that that link that Rainer sent out, you are automatically enter the group of that lecture, or if you scan that QR code, but I don't think that's possible from that distance, I think. But I just created a group for, I think you need to take that screen, maybe it's too far away. Or here, yeah, then. That's just a test case. You can enter that group. Nobody would see your balance sheet, but you would get the information of where is the average and how am I doing as related to the average of that group. Okay, so that's the second part, forming groups, taking part in groups, and thereby getting information. How am I doing as related to average of groups? We have processes for schools where a class of pupils could form their own group, and then they do some activities there, create own challenges, whatever. And the last part is, of course, political decision making, political deals, we call it. Okay, for example, free tree climate change or free tree climate initiative. It's a Welsh idea from Wales in Great Britain. Every new inhabitant of a town gets 1 tree per year and they have to plant it. And a lot of people said, okay, that would be a great deal that people could support. So here in Vorarlberg, where that guy is, it already had 81 supporters. So that guy could support that political deal by clicking on support because he already has some credits. He already had challenges running. If you enter that system and now say, I want to support a political deal, it says, stop, you need credits. So come back tomorrow, then you could start creating or supporting your deals. And there we also want to improve the system that you have different types of deals, very difficult types of deals where you need 3 credits to support it and others that are cheap, something like this. If you invite it, if you support that deal, it also enters into your daily balance sheet. Okay, I support that. And whenever the threshold of supporters for that deal is achieved, we as an organization bring forward that deal to the respective policymakers, to the state government of Vorarlberg, and say, we have 300 people supporting that deal. Please give us an answer. They want an answer from you. He gives us an answer. We enter it into the system, and each and everybody that supported that deal gets a push notification. The Landeshauptmann of Vorarlberg posted an answer on your deal. Okay, that's a small first policy dialogue that you as a consumer, as a member of the population and as a voter, enter into policy dialogue with the state governor of Vorarlberg, for example. So that's basically the idea. It's not only CO2 calculator and getting the impression, okay, it's not possible. It's calculating your points, getting tailor-made suggestions to reduce your points, trying to compare yourself with different groups, creating groups, having group conversations, and each and every group that you form is a sort of island within the big environment of that app. So if you have a Vorarlberg group and you're registered in Tyrol, you don't see the Vorarlberg group, of course, and there is no Tyrol group for now. There is only an Austrian group and European group. So you could say, okay, let's form a group. Mayor of Hall, that's something that we could do. And by this, you help us selling a group to the mayor of Hall, and we would ask for money for him. And then he has the tool to say, okay, we have our car sharing system there, and we could even still more create even more tailor-made suggestions for the population of Hall, for example. And the last part is creating policy suggestions. And of course, there is also that possibility to suggest a deal. If you have, okay, we should do something in a certain part of the country or in Europe, here it's, for now, it's only sending an email because we just started off that thing, but that would be creating a form. What is the policymaker that you want to address? What is the region that you want to tackle? And what is my suggestion? And then we open up that deal and suggest it to others to support it, and then bring it forward to the policymaker as soon as the threshold is achieved. Okay, and by doing this, we sort of copied the Baden by Wien process into the digital life, with some shortcomings, of course. We don't have that group process where people do some cooking courses together, of course. We don't have that close feeling of commitment and group, but we have it a sort of in a virtual place. And that's a shortcoming for sure, but it could be a means of scaling up, and that was why we decided that we want to go that way, because the scaling is the most important thing that we need to achieve, if at all that curve from our economic targets and from our climate target is in parts possible to be achieved. I think I'm done, or open for questions. Thanks.
Yeah, this suggesting deals is fascinating. But many of these deals are somehow similar. Don't you need somebody collecting them and comparing are the overlapping or similar, or can be brought together? And sending out a new message, come together with the other group that do similar things? Or?
That's what we do. Yeah, that's what we do. The suggestion of deal is not entered automatically into the system because of overlaps and things like that. We do the lecturing there, or the what's the call, lectorat. We try to develop these deals. We amend them if we have better suggestions, and we want to make them as concrete as possible. If you enter the system right now, I mean, we just started off. I think if we have 5,000 to 10,000 users in the system, it would start to work. We presently have 2,500 without advertising anything, so it's okay, and we are getting there. And in May, the first process would start in some regions, and there we would get some people, and they would realize, okay, for my region, there are suggestions there because I know the mayor, I know the state governor, and we have deals there from them, but you would not see it if you live in Hamburg. You don't see what they do in Mühlviertel. And that's why we are forced now to also use Instagram and these things, and we would start communicating what others do in order to get a picture of what that tool is able to do. Because if you just download it and I have a weird CO2 calculator and I don't really know what I can do with it. That's our challenge for the next few months.
There are so-called reality apps, the other board, subsidy system. We just are working in such a kind of research project for the other boards, and it's called Energy. It's in the region of the Linn Valley, and we are working on future progress should be done in this region, because there's companies and mayors and so on. So maybe this system could help to making a big group in this region.
You are most welcome. No, of course, that's why we go out now and advertise what we have, and we cannot I would say moderate and facilitate the in-valley process, but we could offer a tool that gives somebody the possibility of spreading the message of good ideas in the in-valley, of course. Yeah.
Where the data are stored.
Yeah. Data security, very important. We have our own server now in Germany, based in Germany. We don't use Google Analytics, that's why we started afresh, and we deleted everything that we did until last year, November. Started afresh with GDPR in our back, and we try to create it now state-of-the-art level of data security. We have a server in Germany that is, of course, connected, but we don't use any non-GDPR sources, and that was something that we said is important. If we want to scale, we are looking for hundreds of thousands of user accounts, possibly, hopefully, we don't know yet. But the interesting thing is the past years showed us that the system is very easy and simple to communicate, and WDR, Bayerischer Rundfunk, they did TV shows on that, and we had YouTube shows on Die Frage and Puls without having our tool yet, and we had 800,000 visitors per week on that system, on our database, and it was great. And the server was down several times because we couldn't manage that number of people, but we didn't have a tool to offer them. We were just a clumsy database, and that was not enough. So we hope that we are in a better position now. And if you have a very small and old smartphone, we don't want to force you to buy a new smartphone because that would not be advisable. So you can always use it just on the web page. It's all the links are on engutertag.org. You don't need a fancy new smartphone. Just use your computer and work on the computer. Works in the same way. That's the case with you. Old Android phones are very difficult to deal with new apps. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. Goodbye.